Welcome back, everybody. I guess this is called an update. I did a video earlier today, and it's still the 24th of August. What time it is? I don't know. It's like 6:30 in the evening, 7 maybe. I don't know. Getting a little bit dark. It's really cold, actually. I got rid of my shirt from earlier today because it got warmer, and now it's gotten colder again. Gotten a little bit overcast. So anyhow, this update. What does this concern? I made that video saying that there was some sort of official records of Ukraine that were hacked, and well, this is the main reason why I'm making this update. But I got other additional news. But anyway, this database that was hacked, belonging to the Ukrainian government, it said that they had lost 1.7 million people. And I was not quite sure what that meant. Did they, well, anyway, let me get into it. I now know the number represents the number of dead and missing from the war zone. Dead and missing. In other words, it's not wounded. It has nothing to do with any wounded that are just taken out of action and can't, I think I was believing and stating that that's what my belief was at that time, is maybe those that can't fight anymore. You know, they're taking people without legs and things, without one leg or something, and putting them back on the front lines to use as cannon fodder against the Russian artillery. And it doesn't make any sense, but yeah, I guess what they're doing is so that the Russians, when they look, it's registered that there's a being there that maybe they don't want to, and they know that Russia doesn't want to risk the lives of their soldiers, so they won't send their soldiers. They'll just bomb the place with artillery, and they know that, so they're just killing these people, bombing them, and rather than Russia advancing more with more people, so they stay back and they just bomb. So they know that their people are going to die, the Ukrainians, so they're putting them up there as cannon fodder, so that the Russians don't advance, and they just use bombs and kill their own people, kill the Ukrainian people. That shows how much value, I guess, they put on the life of their own soldiers. So anyway, oh, I'm afraid in the woods here. Some young boys there. And that's not the woods, it's right on the edge over there. Those people, you can see them walking here. And I don't know, this is not a... Anyway, but let's keep going here. So, what does it mean? You know, those people, for example, I say that are at the war zone and they are no longer there. What does that mean? Obviously, the first category, the main category, is those that are dead. Dead is dead. Sorry to say. That's it. Dead is dead. Well, maybe I'm not sorry to say. I guess the alternative would be zombies. So that's the first category. And the smallest category is those that have surrendered to Russia, that were able to surrender. Maybe they got these radio transmissions. They were able to reply back and then surrender and be saved. At least their lives be saved. And okay, there's the third, and that's the tragic losses, those that were probably killed in battle, and this is a reality. They were killed in battle. Maybe I'll wait here. This looks like there's a couple coming here, a guy and his girl, and they're gonna, I don't want to intersect with them. So there's that third category, is those that are tragic losses. What I mean is that they were killed in battle, and what often happens, and you've heard it multiple times, I've heard it multiple times, I don't know that you have or not. A lot of you people that are, you know, watching this on YouTube, you don't get this news from this side, and they're not going to tell you that on the West. But when a lot of these Ukrainian soldiers die, most all of them are killed by, let's say, Russian artillery or something else, or maybe with bullets, stray bullets, or anything, you know, anytime. But they have these dead bodies, and the commanders order that these bodies are dumped into a pit and just buried. And why they do that, instead of reporting these back through the chain, and I wouldn't want to say chain of command, but back to the rear, is because if these people, for example, are not reported to be dead, they can still draw the salary. The commanders draw the salary, and what happens is they get the money for these people, even though they are dead. They get their salaries and they split it up. Probably the commander takes, they might divide it. Who knows how many? I guess it's maybe a squad, which would be, the squads normally are 10, but you can get a squad of 4 people. I mean, it depends on how many have been killed or whatever, how many are remaining. You might even have 2 or 3 people left, and I guess it would still be called a squad, the remainder of the squad. And a platoon is normally in the United States like 40 or 50 people. I guess it's the same in Britain, or the same in all militaries. And who knows, there might be 3 people left in a whole platoon. And but anyway, those that are not reported as being dead or lost or anything, the salary keeps continuing to come, I believe, or at least it's supposed to. And then these commanders, and then of course it's split up. Maybe the commander takes two portions and everybody else gets 1 portion of it. And if depending on how many people there are, they divide it up like that. And that's a known fact. That's already been reported. That has been reported by those that the Russians have captured, that's what happens. The commanders do that. It happens multiple times, and I'm not saying every time, but it just happens very much. So that is the 3 categories that I know of. So, but in any case, 1.7 million that have basically disappeared, and those are not injured. Those are just people that are either dead or just not even there. So, and that was reported. The hackers that found this is called KillNet, K-I-L-L, capital N-E-T. Heil Zelensky, I guess is what the whole thing is about. Jeez. Today, Zelensky, he was dressed in a beautiful shirt that exemplifies, believe it or not, Eastern Slavic culture. And it kind of makes me wonder. The Eastern Slavs, that's the Russians, the Ukrainians, and the Belarusians. And he's probably a little bit pissed at the Belarusians. Maybe not, it's not a complete hatred yet, as it is with the Russians. And of course, that's the hatred of Russians for the Ukrainians, goes even maybe before the Banderites, but of course it was drastically expanded by the Banderites. And Bandera, Stefan Bandera. And but of course, mainly Stefan Bandera was against communists, and he was against Jews. And anything that Adolf Hitler didn't like, he didn't like. And of course, they are the inferiors, the inferior peoples. They are the scum of the earth. And of course, nowadays, of course, it kind of twisted a little bit. And of course, they hated the Belarusians, of course, back at that time as well, because the Belarusians were part of the Soviet Union. And it didn't matter what each individual person thought. They just wanted to kill. They wanted to kill anybody that is in any of these countries that was, led by the Soviet Union. So they just wanted to kill them all. Like I mentioned before, they were a lot of Belarusians killed. I think way over 1 million people. 30% at a minimum were killed of the Belarusian population. And there is no family that exists that is Belarusian that did not lose somebody in that. And everybody talks about the Poles. Of course, Belarusians lost a much bigger portion of their people than the Polish people. And there were entire villages just wiped out, just massacred. Over 200, by the way, over 200 villages of Belarusians were just wiped out, completely wiped out. And now you have, and I mentioned in the last video that they have a lot of these brainwashing things going around, and a lot of these people are brainwashed to the point that they're supposed to love the Banderites. They're supposed to love these people that massacred Belarusians for the main reason that they were just Belarusian. And they were the inferior peoples, you must be Ukrainian. And the strange thing is, as has been proven over and over again, is if you look at any kind of genetic mapping, and nowadays they can do that. They couldn't do that back in those days, but just Just think, even though they couldn't do it in those days, it makes you wonder, how do they determine who is inferior? The subhumans. But now they can map all this, and these people that think that they're the great bloodline of the Ukrainian, Slava Ukraina. I hope YouTube doesn't use that as my what do they call it, a clickbait sort of a photo. But anyway, they go to these laboratories and they get their genetics mapped, and a lot of them, there's one guy, like I mentioned in another video, and he had his genetics mapped, and it turned out that he has very little part of his genetics come from this area that was formerly, you know, a part of the Soviet Union called Ukraine. And when they told him that, he had different places. I don't know what, but they just said it was only a small part of it was actually what you could consider Ukrainian. So he got really pissed off. He trashed the laboratory. I think he started to try to burn it down, you know, maybe spreading gasoline or something like that, because shoot the messenger. Hey, why not? That's what you're supposed to do, is shoot the messenger. So anyway, that's what happened there. And the blood is so intertwined. As a matter of fact, I mentioned in other videos, and I'm sorry if you've heard this before, but the word Russian is somebody calling somebody a Russian was originally those that are from Kiev, because that was the Kievan Rus. That was the beginning of Russia. That was the first capital of Russia was in Kiev, of Russia. What did I just say? Russia? Yes. Oh my God. Kiev is a part of Russia. Oh, did I just say that? Oh, terrible. Yes. Anyway, that's the truth. So anyway, these people, they're coming up with some sort of a deal. I guess they just want something to be proud of. They want to make sure, they want to somehow differentiate themselves from the Russian. They want somebody to hate. And that's actually what, a lot of people, these, I don't know, what do you call them, these racist regimes do. They want to find somebody to direct their anger at. So they wanted, I tell you what, why do they direct their anger at Russia? It's a huge country. There's a lot of Russians. They're going to go through there and try to kill them all off. Hitler was at least a little bit smarter, and he said, let's go after the Jews. I want to go after the Jews and say that they're the ones that are at fault for everything bad that happens to Germany. And of course, a little bit of that is true, just a little bit. But anyway, how these ideologies and trying to see who they want to hate, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, it happens so many times in history all over the world. You got to find the inferiors. We must go after the inferiors. The black people, the Jews, whoever, I don't know, the Russians, the Russian people. Anyway, pretty interesting stuff. But that's, anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. Anyway, it was like this KillNet, like I said. Just, how did I get to this sort of a thing? Anyway, I don't know. But Zelensky was in his beautiful, and I'll tell you what, it's not even really, I don't know, is the colors of Ukraine black and white? He just wanted to make a fashion statement. Obviously, I think they were on Vogue, he and his wife or something like that. Zelensky, his fashion statement, as soon as he was wearing his green t-shirts, and then he got his, I guess maybe he's switched to black now. If anybody has noticed that, he's mostly wearing black all the time. Man, I'm the first one to notice this, or what? I don't know. Wow. So what else? Where was I leaving off here? I don't think I have this on pages and stuff, and I'm just trying to keep up with this, and I never even go by the script. But yeah, Carnival, the leader of Canada was there, and of course they were hugging and kissing. I love Ukraine, and of course Maya Sandow, everybody, they have to send all of their messages how much they love Ukraine, and it just really, I don't know. I don't really understand what this is all about, to be honest with you. I think they're trying, because there's a certain segment of the population that believes all this stuff, that it was Russia that invaded Ukraine, and of course it's quite a large segment, I believe. They don't realize that it was actually the West, using Ukraine as a tool that actually invaded. Well, what do you want to say? They started killing their own people, I guess. Is that what you want to say? Is that the real truth about it? They started killing the people in Donbass because they banned the language. The Ukrainians, the West Ukrainians, they banned the language of Russia. They banned the Russian language, and they're trying to eradicate anything that's part of the Russian culture, even though the Russian culture, for the most part, started in Kiev. Wow, isn't that incredible? It should be it should be them trying to exclude the Russian people, and saying, we are the ones that are the Russian people and you guys are imposters. Why don't they say that? Because that actually could fly. That could fly. But what they're actually trying to do is they're trying to change some sort of a deal and saying, we are not Russian. Those are Russians and they need to be killed. Instead of saying, we're the true Russians and you guys are imposters. That would make far more sense. It's absolutely incredible. And if you don't believe me, why don't you go talk to some professor of Russian history or somebody somewhere. You can look it up yourself. What is theirs? A History of Russia. What's the guy's name? Rizanovsky. His father was a dissident from Russia. He left Russia because he was disillusioned, wanted to get away from that. And he had his son became a very prominent professor and one of the most recognized professors of Russian history, Rizanovsky. A History of Russia. There are many. I don't even know when the first one. What is it? How many editions of that has come out lately? I would suggest that you get some of the older editions, and it's not because that so much of it has changed. I don't really even know. But I think they started putting a lot of woke stuff in there. Maybe it was during the Biden times. So I guess maybe you'd have to look at some of the editions that are maybe, I would just say, pre-1990. What is it in the, I don't know, the 10th edition, the 20th edition? And I believe that professor has died, and maybe somebody else is revising that and putting a bunch of crap in it by now. I'm not sure. I'm just guessing. But just get the older editions. I don't know if I get in the really, really old ones. Maybe there's more stuff has come to light. Very difficult when you're trying to find the right edition to historical text, As I said, I was an honor graduate in history, and professors asked me if they can use a lot of the research material that I had done, if they can put it in some of their future books and their writings. And I, of course, I complied to that. I signed the papers and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not like some kind of like an idiot or something like that. So what I'm telling you is actually true. And nowadays, as you guys all know, they're trying to rewrite history. And some of the stuff that you're going to get online, it's very easy to change online, and to tweak a few words here and there and make history become something completely different than what it really, really was back in those days. I mean, at least what we believe it was back in those days. So it's you got to be really careful. And it's like the burning of the books, but it's much easier. All you have to do is change everything on the internet and make a lot of fake history. So I've given some sort of advice, and I know that Tucker Carlson would actually agree with what I'm saying, is save your books. Get the older books. Get the books at least before the Clintons came in, when things really started to change. Try to, some of your older books, whenever you get those books, you find these older editions and you save them books. Save those books, because that's probably a lot more accurate information than the stuff that is coming out now. It's like you believe something and you have an old book, and then you read it on the internet and you say, what the heck? My edition says something different. Because I've had that already. It's interesting. Okay, let's keep going. Why am I doing this stuff? Talking, going into some sort of a thing like that. Other EU, let's see, China. Next week, this is really incredible. Is that where I'm at or not? Let's see. Anyway, I talked about their hatred of Russia. And these people are, it's like they're ordered by the globalist corporations. I've already talked before about, how they want to split up Russia. to at least 30 countries. In some writings, they have 40 countries, 41 countries. So, and then later on, Здравствуйте, or hello, or what is that in, gosh, what is it in French? I don't know. Francais, I don't know. So African guy, I guess. Okay, next. No, let's keep going. No, these, like Putin was saying yesterday, I said it in that video, that they don't really hate any countries, they just hate the elites of some countries, meaning, of course, those that run the corporations. As you know, Larry Fink, who was the CEO of BlackRock, now he's taken over for Klaus Schwab. Some people even say that, well, he was kind of the one that was directing it all anyway. He was directing Klaus Schwab, we will penetrate the cabinets, and you will own nothing and be happy, and we will have COVID going everywhere, and make sure that you get your COVID shots and you eat the bugs. And I talked a little bit earlier today in that video that I put out, Bill Gates trying to put out his laboratory meat. And there's, if it's true what I was reading about that before, that meat, a lot of the basis of whatever they're using, chemicals and things, it's going to also be weeds and bugs that they're going to be putting in this laboratory meat. Doesn't that sound great? While Bill Gates, of course, he has this addiction to beef. He's going to be eating beef hamburgers while you're eating the bugs, you're eating the chemicals, and whatever the heck else they're going to put in those laboratory meat things. Jeez. And, by the way, throw in a little bit of medicines there, so you'll have your COVID shot while you're eating your hamburger at the same time. They've already done that with some mosquitoes, I guess, where they're putting, they're having these like in certain areas. But it makes me really wonder, say you get inoculated for something, and then you get it again from another mosquito, and then again and again and again. So it's like getting, 15 COVID shots, maybe in a day, depending on how many mosquitoes bite you. I wonder how healthy that is. I wonder how that's going to work. So maybe they're going to come up with a new one. Dengue. What are some of these things? I had dengue, I think. But what's the other one? Chikungunya. And I don't know. I'll tell you what, a lot of this stuff is probably all created anyway by the globalists and Bill Gates and these people, Ebola and all that, with their things like that. You look at the history of that, it's all very, very suspicious, and you can start to wonder, boy, oh boy, oh boy, I wonder if all of this stuff came about somehow in a laboratory. And a lot of people don't know that the Russians, damn those Russians, they came up with the Ebola vaccine, a real vaccine, and it's similar to, it's how it goes through the nuclear envelope, apparently, like a lot of the chemicals, and it's a lot like, AstraZeneca tried to copy that with their COVID vaccine, and of course it didn't go that well. Somehow, I don't really know. And the American vaccines, Pfizer and all that, has a different way where the messenger RNA gets into the nuclear envelope. I guess it forces its way in, and the Russian one is a little bit, it kind of gently pushes its way in, and the American one forces its way in. I did the research back in the old days, and I mean in the COVID times, because I don't know, and I forgot exactly, but the Russians were doing this in the 1980s, and the U.S., what was it called? Operation Warp Speed from Donald Trump. I don't know if they copied it. They probably knew. And I think it was even this, Robert Malone. He was one of the ones pioneering that in the United States, and he is saying, well, I don't think you should get these vaccines. It's not a good idea. So anyway, but he's actually the one that invented it, and he's telling you don't get it. So if I remember correctly. But let's keep going. What else we got here? That's nothing what I was talking about. Next week, Putin is going to embark on a 4-day visit to China. And as I put in the earlier video today, if you didn't see it, you should watch it, because it talks a lot about what's going on with the BRICS and like the relationship between China and Brazil. is really going, and big time, and India and Russia and India and China. So the BRICS are really, really moving closer together very, very, very much. And Donald Trump, if you looked at some of the things that he put out, I think it was maybe a month ago or maybe 6 weeks ago, I've destroyed the BRICS. Well, I'll tell you what, Donald Trump, you made the BRICS like they are really, really moving closer together. And this is really going to be something. And then there are a lot of other countries that want to be involved as well. Even Hungary, as I mentioned this morning. I don't know if that is actually true. I'm thinking it's true, even though I hadn't seen it anywhere else. But we'll see. We'll see. We will see. I don't know. Okay. So anyway, they're supposed to be making a lot of huge agreements. And this is real news. China and Russia. And I'm sure Donald Trump is not going to like that too much. And Donald Trump, as you all know, I mentioned earlier today that he's sending a huge amount of longer range weapons to Ukraine. So it makes you really wonder. I think he's, Donald Trump, how he works. He's like, oh, you better do like I want you to do, or else I could just be releasing some strikes on you, some bombing raids like I did with the Houthi, even though I lost my ass on that one. The Houthi did not capitulate. And the Houthi, I think they're depleted. They're depleted from a lot of things, and maybe as they make cars coming from, as they make more of these hypersonic missiles or whatever. I don't even think they're hypersonic, because I think Israel's able to shoot a lot of these things down. So, but it looks like they are kind of tapped out to a large extent, because they're not doing very much against Israel. And Israel, by the way, they bombed Sana'a again, the capital. Oh boy. And matter of fact, it was probably like 1 hour ago from right now when I'm making this video. And I don't know when it's going to be uploaded, but so another bombing, and they were trying to, well, they kind of made a mistake. They targeted the presidential palace, but it turns out that the Houthi aren't using that palace. That's old, and I don't know, maybe there was a guard there, who knows? Maybe somebody got killed, but it has nothing to do with any part of government. But another thing they actually hit was a power station again. They like to hit the power stations, the infrastructure, And I guess as far as Israel is concerned, they will do that to civilian infrastructure anyway. They do it anyway in Gaza. They bomb the hospitals and the schools and everything, and everybody knows about that. Even though a lot of the time lately, I think Israel is telling the Palestinians, it's really weird. It's really weird. They tell them in advance they're going to bomb this place, and they destroy the crap out of it. But doesn't that also let Hamas leave those places? When everybody knows that they're going to bomb these places, then Hamas says, well, okay, just let's leave. Let's go somewhere else. But I guess the whole thing is to destroy every building possible all throughout Gaza. And it looks like that's exactly what they're doing. So it's not very pretty. Looks like a lot of people coming here now. Okay, but anyway, what else are they going to do? So these the BRICS countries are getting closer together, and I guess they're all not together. What, did they get off a bus or something? These people and that couple there. Okay. So anyway, I already put out a lot of these leaders are already they're already giving their kissing up to Ukraine, Maya Sandow, Slava Ukraina, Slava Ukraina, which was the rally cry of Bandera, the Nazis. The Ukrainian Nazi rally cry was Slava Ukraina. It's like Heil, Heil, Hister. I don't know if I can say that on the videos. I might get taken down or something like that. Anyway, so another way to say Heil Hitler but in Ukrainian is Slava Ukraina. That's the Banderite call. Make it sure. And it's really strange that all these European leaders are saying that. So they're saying, we are Nazis. Maya Sandow certainly is, of course, of Moldova. And the people, she's probably very well hated. by the majority of the people, but they're going to make sure she stays in power. It's just like a lot of countries, as you know. And as you all know already, and I mentioned already before, but this is part of this deal right now that's going on. The Alice Weidel from the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland party, she is the most popular politician, what do I always say, federal politician in Germany, and Merz is not, believe it or not. But even though they made sure that she would not become the Chancellor of Germany, they're going to keep doing that. Isn't that strange? Normally you'd think the most popular person, would win the vote, except they do everything possible to make sure she doesn't. It makes you wonder who is actually in charge. I guess that's democracy, right? It's not the people. It's not the people at all. You have some cabal that's in charge. Wow, 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 wow. Incredible. So, anyway, what else is happening? Ukraine is trying to say that Russia bombed an American electronics factory that makes coffee machines. And it turns out that it's possible that some Americans, they might have had some investment in this factory, and they did make coffee machines, but what else did they make? And Russia had very, very, very good information, and they said they made sure that they were right, that this factory is making more than just some coffee machines. The electronics factory, by the way. So they're making parts for probably drones, I would imagine, or maybe for missiles. And Ukraine is really, really trying to get into missiles. And of course you have the Germany, and of course they admit that they are there. Matter of fact, I would even maybe venture to say that it's Germany that is involved in that factory. There's a lot of factories in Germany that makes coffee machines. Make good coffee machines, by the way. Krupps and Melita and lots of those. And but anyway, I bet you dollars to donuts that they're also involved in that factory, and they're making parts for missiles, because Merz has said, and of course even before Merz, it was Olaf Scholz, they want to make weapons in Ukraine. And Rheinmetall, I think, is the company that makes weapons most. The biggest weapons maker in Germany, and they said they are in Ukraine. They are making weapons in Ukraine. So, just for your own information. And Vance said that no U.S. boots on the ground in Ukraine. They're not going to put any American boots on the ground in Ukraine. But I already said in the video earlier today, it's very strange, and you thought that they weren't going to send any weapons anymore, but they're sending a huge amount of long-range missiles to Ukraine. Very strange. So anyway, no boots on the ground. But he said, and he said this on video, so you can find it, U.S. will take active role in ensuring Kiev's security guarantees. What about Russia's security guarantees? As a matter of fact, that's why the war started, because they would not guarantee anything for the security of Russia. Nothing whatsoever. And that was the whole reason. That's the whole reason of this thing. Because they made absolutely, positively, definitely sure that they will not give any security guarantees to Russia. And Russia kept saying, well, why are you moving right up onto our border? Why are you moving NATO right up onto our border? So, well, that's how it is, Wow. Surprise. So I guess, who does that tell you? If Donald Trump is giving security guarantees and sending weapons and letting, and the use of the satellites for pinpointing Russian targets, for the Ukrainian weapons and the bombs, is he neutral? Does that sound like Donald Trump is neutral? Is he a neutral guy? Is he doing that for Russia? Strange. I don't think he is. But Donald Trump says he's neutral. I mean, think about this. I mean, it's very easy how they can brainwash people and make you think, oh, well, he's a good guy, okay, he's just, he's neutral and all that. But you look at what the United States offers for Ukraine, and look at what they offer to Russia, and then you'll find out if they're really neutral or not. And you'll find out it's not very difficult. Okay. NBC, you know, I guess Donald Trump loves them too. So does Russia. They interviewed Lavrov and said Russia is bombing churches, kindergartens, and schools. Obviously, they got that mixed up with Israel and with Ukraine. Ukraine, actually, I don't know. They do bomb those things, but they don't bomb them as much as Israel. Israel bombs them with a vengeance, and they bomb hospitals. They bomb everything, absolutely everything. Reporters, they kill reporters. How many? I mean, so Israel is actually far, far worse. But Ukraine, I guess, is in second place. And Russia, they make sure not to do that as much as they possibly can, even though a lot of time, and it's very well proven, that because they even have film footage of it, that Ukraine takes over schools and they put the soldiers in there. And sometimes there's even children having classes in those schools. But anyway, they go into the schools and they use those as their military headquarters in certain areas, the Ukrainians. And when Russia bombs them, then it comes out, look at Russia bombed a school. But that has happened in the past. I don't think it has happened lately, though. And who is the one that's bombing all the churches? Who's the one that's closing down the churches? Who's the one that's locking up the priests? Oh, gosh dang, that's Ukraine doing that. They ban religions, they ban languages, but they're the good guys. That's what the good guys do. That's democracy, everybody. Okay. Anyway, Lavrov asked for proof. He says, can you show us any proof of this? NBC, you're a very, very well-respected organization, and blah, blah, blah. And I want to, your journalistic abilities. Can you show me the proof? And she just said, yes, we have the proof. Well, let's see the proof then, Oh, no, I left it in the office. I left it in the office. Anyway, she's not going to show any proof. They don't have any proof. They'll never have any proof because it isn't even true. Unless they're going to show some place in Ukraine that Ukraine bombed or some footage that Russia took in the Donbass when Ukraine bombed a school, and they're going to say that is actually that Russia did it. They've done that already before. They've done it multiple times. And Americans aren't going to know the difference. Yes. But the only thing is, you all have to remember, Russia bad, Ukraine good, democracy. That's all you have to remember, Okay. But anyhow, like I said, that's kind of an update of what is going on. And I wanted to, like I said, I had a few beers, if you haven't noticed. And I just wanted to actually clarify more about what I was saying about what I put out earlier, because I didn't really have quite all the information exactly on those 1.7 million dead Ukrainians, or gone, or whatever, taken out of action. So now you have it. What was the name of that thing? Kill something or other? Back on page 1. I don't know. Should I tell you guys? Because that might be some people you want to actually keep track of. This hacker, KillNet. Wow. I don't know. I'm not into hacking. I don't condone hacking or nothing like that. But these people, in this case, might be a useful information. Okay, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this second one, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.